World of Warcraft is now polling the community to add so many new classes, and some of them you will never see coming. In this video, we're reacting to a video from Bellular Gaming talking about all these new classes, his thoughts before they come to World of Warcraft, and I gotta know, what do you think? Let's dive on in. Come on now.
All right, so here's the deal. You've probably seen this German survey making the rounds, and for good reason, because the implications it carries are pretty damn heavy, and not just heavy, they're actually exciting. So assuming this is not an elaborate hoax, and we have many reasons to believe that it is not, well, Blizzard...
I think it's real, and here's why. Because we have seen so many of these happen with like WoW Classic, where they've sent out these like, you know, these small surveys to certain community members, even in different countries, about like, do you want WoW Classic, like Burning Crusade or Canada to come out? And they've almost always come true. So I think this is really true as well.
Basically want to know what their players think about classes, specifically new classes. This was posted by Chromie.de. It was translated by Enrif on MMO Champion, and with it we've got a list of what Blizzard thinks is coming next. That's new classes, and of course, just like how Legion brought the Demon Hunter, we also get loads and loads of World Soul Saga lore hints and that sort of thing. It is an absolute hell of a list. Getting stuck into the list, first of course we've got the Tinker, the one that probably needs no introduction.
Tinkerer, huh?
We've always imagined a Tinker to be a goblin or a gnome, but this version is basically Blizzard asking about a tank, healer, and DPS that uses all...
Okay, so this would be a new tank, which we haven't had a new tank since Legion with Demon Hunter.
Things Titan technology, which of course if you think about mechanomes does make plenty of sense. That means mech suits, robot summons, and even something that they call inventions, which are custom-made spells. That sounds awesome, and if Blizzard wants to sell copies, well, I think that'll actually get people's interest. Now, another obvious entry is the necromancer. We don't have much...
This would be cool, man. This would be cool.
Description here because everybody knows what a necromancer does, and I think everyone wants to play one. You see, Demonology Warlock is one form of what some other MMOs would call a Horde class. World of Warcraft hasn't actually had a pure Horde class in the way that some other games have.
At least to my current knowledge, a Horde class is something that can summon like multiple beasts at once, I think. Think Necromancer from Diablo, where you have like a bajillion skeletons and zombies with you. I think something like that in WoW would actually be really, really cool. But you do have to ask the question, at what point is a Necromancer really need to be a new class? Or does it really just kind of need to be a fourth spec for a Warlock? I think there's maybe some room for that conversation.
So yeah, there is some overlap, obviously, with Demonology and Unholy DK, but I do think it's something Blizzard could actually pull off. Moving on then, the survey brings up the Bard, but not just some random fact.
I have been saying this for months. Months and months and months. Ever since they announced the Augmentation Evoker, I was like, Blizzard, when are you just going to make a Bard? I mean, you don't even need any creativity. Bard has been around in video games and RPGs for so long. Just add it into your game. Just put it in your game. You know what I mean? What are we doing here?
With the loot. No, this time it is them using the Song of Azeroth for their magic.
Oh shoot! I didn't see this the first time. A Bard tank? Oh, I'm in, dude. A support, so it could actually be like a support class like the Aug, a healer, and a tank. This is crazy.
And it's Blizzard again suggesting another tank, healer, and DPS combo class, one that is specifically focused on support. So basically it would be taking all of their Augmentation Evoker like learnings and kind of weaving that into a big full class. And look, I know when most people think of
but like the unique thing about this too is it's a support style tank. So that would be very, very interesting for me.
They think of some fella at a tavern. I totally get that, but if Blizzard were to do it in that way, I actually think it would feel unique to World of Warcraft, unique to the setting, unique to the lore, and that would actually help it stand apart. Okay, the next two then are fan favorites. They're pretty simple. There's the Warden, which would be using chat rooms and traps at mixed range, and then the very long-awaited Spellbreaker, which would basically be an anti-magic melee that would be enchanting their own gear. That all sounds pretty damn awesome. Now, this list also does just totally go off the rails. There are some ones that jumped out as just being crazy, but they kind of make sense.
Let me know in chat if some of these just don't feel like WoW to you. I don't know how I feel about that too much, but yeah, let me know.
Titan Killer and Prismatic. Now, Titan Killer is said to combine Teshalak and Gorabal, which are the swords of Agramar and Sargeras, to create their true form, Gorshalak the Dark Render. And that's pretty cool because if you know the lore, that is the semi-sentient sword that broke itself into pieces whenever Sargeras went mad in order to protect the universe. All pretty cool, crazy stuff.
Is it kind of a warrior?
Connecting to cosmic powers of the Titans to defend Azeroth, which, as a lore-wise concept, does sound pretty damn cool. That being said, is that a full class, maybe the anti-Titan version of the Demon Hunter, or is that something that's a bit more of a warrior hero talent?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, it just feels like a warrior, big two-handed weapon, destroyer, especially now with hero talents. And, you know, now that WoW has stepped into the 4th spec territory with druids being the only class of the game with 4 specs, I think there's a lot of room for maybe not all these classes, but hero talents / you know, maybe 4th specs.
Same with Prismatic as well. Prismatics are, quote, heirs to titanic power, who can use their purest powers of the cosmos like life, order, death, and shadow to heal, tank, and DPS. And again, to me that sounds like, I mean, maybe a class, but also perhaps a bit of a mage hero talent tree, or an advanced class, something like that.
True.
Because of course many games do have advanced classes on top of what they usually ship.
I'm not sure what an advanced class is, but I do know that especially with, you know, WoW Classic Seed Discovery, the whole concept of the mage also being able to be a healer sounds decently similar, but I think it's cool in concept. But again, I definitely keep running into, does it need to be a whole class? But like the Bard, absolutely, that's its own class. But we'll see. Let's keep going.
Plus, there's a very heavy focus here on the power coming from the Titans and from Azeroth. Another example is...
That in itself, in my opinion, lends itself to its own class, because now we're getting into, like, even though I'm not a huge lore person, but like where they derive their power, they can't really be a 4th mage spec because mages don't really, like, they don't really do that. So that I can kind of see being a cool introduction into justify the need for an entire class.
Leyweaver. That's another advanced mage-sounding class that's found in this survey. It uses Azeroth's ley lines to teleport about the place, as well, of course, as to heal, DPS, and support. There's also the Artificer, which in the survey specifically calls out to using handmade machines and Titan technology to do all 3 roles, which again does sound a little bit like a Titan tinker. But within its description, there are some real exciting touches, things like extendable flails and reactive shields. Sounds kind of awesome.
One thing I will say, though, is I am excited to see Blizzard, again, just trying a ton of new things, man. Like, that has been the theme of, like, the past 2 years. Just trying, like, taking risks, going out there, stepping into new territory. And it doesn't mean that all these classes are coming to the game. I mean, ultimately, none of this is even fully confirmed. It's all speculation, right? But they're trying new things, man. And I'd rather them try new things than do nothing. Even if the new things are maybe even not all of our favorites. I'm really excited to see Blizzard continue a consistent track of just trying new things, exploring, throwing things at the wall, and seeing what sticks.
And then there's the Witch, and this is really, really cool.
This sounds cool.
It would be using old dark magic like troll voodoo, the Drustvar sort of witch magic, all of that decay stuff that we saw the Gnolls use in Dragonflight.
Voodoo, I'm not a fan of.
All of that into a witch. I think that would be sick. And then after that, there's a few more generic ones like the Gunner and the Gunslinger, which would both be dual-wielding pistols. Hell yes to that. The Gunner would be used...
Okay, so that sounds like, if you guys have ever seen it, a machinist from Final Fantasy XIV, which I totally think they could just take some of their classes, put their own spin on it. This seems cool. At first, I was like, is this a hunter? But a dual-wielding pistol? That's actually pretty cool.
Using elemental buffs on their guns and ammo, while the Gunslinger would just be shooting enemies. And honestly, after playing a whole bunch of Mercenary and Path of Exile 2, oh, hell yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Now, there's also another one in this, the Apothecary. It's another healer, support, and DPS using potions that they combine.
I'm liking the theme of additional classes that have support. There's been like at least 2 to 3, maybe even 4 support-specific like roles. I think this is great.
There's also Battle Mage, which of all of these just sounds a little bit undercooked. There's a quick line about empowering weapons with elements and creating constructs, which just sounds like a mage-ish enhancement shaman, so don't really know if that'll be a thing. Then we've got 2 that distinctly don't feel like World of Warcraft. They're quite cosmic-y though, so there's the Astrologian. If you're a Final Fantasy player, you'll know that. It's a spellcaster using stars and gravity magic, which basically just sounds like an advanced arcane mage. And then the Celestial Lancer. That would be a melee that leaps about the place using spears and Titan
the
magic.
Dragoon.
Again, if you play Final Fantasy XIV, you'll know that's basically a Dragoon. So
Final Fantasy has sick classes. I think Blizzard should just basically take them and put them in WoW, dude. Like, probably one of my favorite classes in all of Final Fantasy XIV is the Samurai. Like, think your typical samurai, insane samurai sword, samurai-looking outfit. I love the samurai in that game. Bro, what I wouldn't give to be a samurai in World of Warcraft, dude. Now, would it fit the universe, the world? I don't know, but it's just so cool, man. Final Fantasy does cool things. Just take their ideas and roll with it, dude.
So you might be wondering then, Michael, what the hell? That is so much stuff. How could Blizzard put anywhere near any of this into the game? Well, that's a good question. The answer here to all of this is Blizzard, well, they have ideas, but they don't have a firm direction, and that is why they're doing a survey. Surveys like this are designed to find out what kind of fantasies would land the hardest with players. And to make sense of that, we just need to look to the past. Look at the Evoker, right? That landed to a mixed at best response. Yeah. It was a mid-range twink dragon caster, whenever what most people wanted was basically some extremely roided up, muscle-bound, crush-my-face Daddy Chad dragon, which is obviously what they didn't.
Did he just say Daddy Chad dragon? That's so good. But the Evoker, the Drakthir Evoker was definitely met with mixed emotions. I love the Drakthir Evoker, but I know a lot of people kind of were like in about it. So I think if they polled people and gathered interest rather than just like dropped a brand new class on us, it probably would go over better for sure.
So the idea of Blizzard heavily like market testing, seeing what ideas gel with people, that's pretty damn obvious.
Yeah,
they want to drop this news on a stream or say Gamescom next year and have the crowd explode with joy. If the Midnight expansion isn't to have a new class, this is them teeing up the big things that they want to do with The Last Titan. And if Midnight is giving us player housing as its big back-of-the-box feature, well, maybe Blizzard do decide to go as hard as they can on class.
That's true, because Midnight's already pretty close, and they've already announced the roadmap and how player housing is coming with Midnight. They didn't mention anything about new classes, so that's a pretty good point. These are probably not coming out with Midnight. They're probably coming out with the Last Titan, or whatever the last expansion is called. And that's actually cool, because if they're not coming out until then, that means that them doing this poll so early means they're really trying to get started on it like 3 years in advance, which would give them plenty of time to play test, plenty of time to poll the community, but could also even mean that maybe for the first time ever in World of Warcraft history, maybe we would get multiple new classes in one expansion. We have gotten multiple new races in previous expansions. One of those, obviously, classics being Burning Crusade, where we got both the Draenei and the Blood Elf. But we've never, I don't believe, unless I'm wrong, let me know in the comments in the chat right now. I don't think we've ever gotten more than one new class in one expansion. But with this having so many options on the table and 3 years plus to be able to work on it, I mean, we could see 2, maybe 3 of these coming out all at once. That's a really good point to bring up.
For The Last Titan. I would certainly sell copies of the game. Going back to the survey, though, we know which ones that they would most likely want to give us because it asks about those in more detail before asking for rankings of the rest. And those are Prismatic, Bard, Gunner, and Astrologian.
So it seems like these are the ones that they think most people are going to go for, but ultimately they could be wrong. I definitely agree with Bard. I think pretty much everybody's going to go for Bard, again, because Bard isn't even a concept of like creativity. Just steal it from other RPGs, put it in the game. That one just seems like a no-brainer. If they don't add Bard to the game, I think that's just the definition of working harder, not smarter. Like, just put Bard in the game. Copy and paste, just put it in the game. Now, the other ones, obviously, a little bit more creativity. I do think the Gunner, like I said, would feel very much like a machinist from Final Fantasy XIV. Physical damage, ranged gun kind of person. But I do think the idea of dual wielding, which has never been done in WoW, I think, well, at least dual wielding pistols, that's really, really cool. You can obviously dual wield swords and maces and stuff, but that's really cool. Astrologian, again, I think could be its own spin for Final Fantasy XIV. I'll be honest, I don't know if I still fully really understand what Prismatic is. I do like the idea of like kind of gathering your power from like the cosmic powers and everything. I think that's kind of cool, but I think I still need more clarity on what it is. But the truth is, I don't even think maybe they have too much clarity because again, it's just so early on. But this is cool.
So the questions here are specifically how well a class fits in the Warcraft universe, how interested the player filling out the survey would be in playing it, and how adding that would basically impact their World of Warcraft experience. That's what they've got for those, but for the rest of the concepts, they basically just show you a few things and ask you which you would be most likely or unlikely to play. Okay, let's take our hype meters down and try to discuss this a little bit more rationally. So the next question is when, and the answer is again obvious, it's the Last Titan. Midnight is just over a year or so away. I know that sounds crazy, but that is actually how the dates are lining up.
Yeah,
and we already know about the player housing. If Blizzard,
we're speculating like early February-ish for Midnight.
We're asking about class concepts for Midnight, that would basically mean that they would be deciding on that and making a whole class in time for Alpha, which, I mean, to call that too fast would be...
Oh, yeah. I'm not even thinking about like Alpha and then Beta. Yeah, they would need... I mean, if they haven't even decided, they would need to decide yesterday and then make it in like 3 months. Yeah. I don't think so.
Putting it lightly. Though it is, of course, true that for World of Warcraft's history, we used to get a class every other expansion, but that trend did stop with Shadowlands.
Yeah.
It was the first odd-numbered expansion to ship without one, so they did kind of break the pattern there. And with hero talents and warbands this expansion and player housing taking up the marketing banner in Midnight, I think it does track that the Last Titan would need a class to actually spice it up and get people excited. And that would obviously explain how Azeroth and Titan stuff is just deeply rooted in like all of these different concepts. Like every new class that we've ever gotten in World of Warcraft was tied directly to the story of the expansion that it shipped in. So it is really all lining up. And if we assume that, there are things we could just cut out of the list, right? Like Witch, Apothecary, Battle Mage. They're quite generic.
For me, I think Necromancer is probably the one that I think could be also cut out. It just kind of feels like a fourth Warlock spec kind of thing.
They don't really feel like things that would scream The Last Titan. This is the expansion where you do the JRPG thing and kill God at the end. So that's them ruled out. I think it would also rule out the Warden, Spellbreaker, and Necromancer. I think players would love those, but again, they don't really scream the story. If Spellbreaker was to happen, you'd probably tie that to the Quel'Thalas revamp, but, well... having that for Midnight does seem pretty damn ambitious. The Gunner and Gunslinger are worth talking about, though,
seems cool,
because you might think those are extra unlikely. Adding, say, one-handed guns as whole new weapons in WoW would be a bit of a big step, but honestly, they did that in Legion with Demon Hunter, so that doesn't completely rule it out. Taking everything into account then, based purely on the survey, I would say the most likely one is probably Bard, right?
Again, to not add Bard is just a throw. Like every other game has it. Just put it in the game, dude.
That's the one that they're asking about specifically through the survey.
And not only that, but now you would be pulling from people that play other games that love a Bard that now want to come play WoW because WoW has a Bard. It's just a no. Just Blizzard, just put it in the game.
Questions, and I think to most generic, like general MMO players, it's very recognizable.
Yeah,
far more so than prismatic. People wouldn't really know what to make of that. And of course, there's the Radiant song.
I've seen this video and I still don't know what to make of it.
Just fits Bard. It would make sense. There's actually a reason why the Bard's music would be magical and powerful, as opposed to just, your mates are all just hopped up and good vibes and they're hitting harder. Though with Bard, I'm very keen to know like what kind of weapon they would use. How would that actually function? So, an interesting problem, especially because it would be a supporting tank healer and DPS. Bards are traditionally similar to rogues. They tend to fight with very simple weapons, but then use support magic, like, say, the Bards in FF, which use a bow. So how Blizzard spins that would be pretty interesting, especially when it comes to giving 3 specs and then hero talents. The next question, then, is, these are all really cool, why are we only getting one of them? Could Blizzard do more? My personal hope, actually, is that these ideas are a mixture of hero talents, new specs, and new classes. I mean, we already know that Blizzard are going to expand hero talents. The system is kind of designed so they could do that.
Absolutely.
So thinking of it in a way, like suddenly Titan Killer as a warrior, or maybe a Demon Hunter, makes total sense. Witch being a Shaman hero talent makes sense. I mean, Gunslinger is a 4th rogue spec. That would also be pretty cool.
Taco, there it is.
Blizzard just add some new specs to the game? I mean, I don't see why not. Druids have got 4. It wouldn't kill us to make rogues have a 4th.
Absolutely.
Now, setting aside some balance concerns for a minute, I think the game could just do with more fantasies being opened up to players, and this stuff would work. I mean, just to mention it, it's important that Blizzard keep bringing out tank and healer specs as well. New exciting classes will not stop the population issues alone, but if Blizzard can fix the problems that tanks and healers are currently facing, I mean, a new class, that could really get people excited to try out the role. And it would also mean the unique...
We have such a shortage, especially of tanks in World of Warcraft, that if they can add multiple new tanks, it might really increase the population of tanks in the game, because I do think there's a lot of reasons why people don't want to play tank. They're super intimidated. I think the responsibilities of the Mythic Plus culture, I do think is way too high on a new tank coming in. It's very, very intimidating. Personally, I love it, but it was very intimidating for me to get into it. And then it's a whole different conversation. However, I do think maybe part of the reason, I wouldn't even say the biggest reason, but I think part of the reason there's such a low population for tanks and a lower population for healers is really we've had the same choices for like a really long time. Of course, we have like, you know, Evoker that added preservation and stuff, but for the most part, especially when it comes to tanks, we've really had just the same choices. There's probably a lot of people who'd be open to being a tank, but they're like, but I don't like the current options. So by adding new options, I think it would increase curiosity, increase gameplay. I don't think it would do a ton of a difference, but I think it would add a little bit more to the tank and healer population, which overall I think would be good for the health of the game.
Challenges of tanking and healing could be approached from different design angles, which, of course, could appeal to more players. But there is something to keep in mind here: methodology. This is one survey. Nobody else has shared their survey yet, but you see, surveying users, especially across different languages, audiences, countries, is a complicated and actually fascinating business. To get proper data, you need to send out a load of surveys.
I can imagine, yeah.
I mean, that's surveys that will often have different combinations to work around the biases of different users. So this could only be a small fraction of what Blizzard are actually thinking about. Or it could be that their heart is actually just set on one and they want to make sure that people are down for it. That's, of course, if the survey is real at all. Chromie.de were the people who were posting.
I really hope it is. That would be so sad if it wasn't.
They did imply that multiple players actually sent them in. And indeed, I regularly get in my email surveys that people send in. And very often, those surveys can't really just be posted verbatim online, because these surveys actually, you know, they will basically say, this is confidential, please do not share. I know it's a little bit like saying, oh, this is my OC, do not steal. People will do whatever they want on the internet. But the point is that often the specific language, even the ordering of questions, can be done to be decently identifiable. And I know a lot of people would say, well, why don't you just look at the forum, look at videos, what people are actually talking about, and get your ideas from there? You see, the thing about these surveys is Blizzard has got one of the most gargantuan email lists on the planet, right? They have millions and millions and millions of emails. So they could send one of these to people who are current subscribers of the game. They could send one of these emails to people who only play Classic. They could send these emails, these surveys, to people who haven't played the game in 5 years. And that will tell them how different segments of World of Warcraft's overall population actually, well, vibe with all of these different ideas. So it's exciting stuff. And if I was a betting man, I would absolutely say we will be getting new class content in the Last Titan expansion. I think
even if we didn't get these, you know, potential surveys and stuff, we're going to be due for one at that point, right? We got one in Dragonflight, got the Evoker, the Drag 3 Evoker. So that's actually a new race and a new class, which that hasn't happened since Mission Pandaria. I think we're just going to be due at that. We're just going to be due at that point, because then we got one in Dragonflight, didn't get one in War Within, most likely not getting one in Midnight. Yeah, I think even without all this, I think it's just safe to say Last Titan, we're just going to get one, because at that point, I think we'll just be overdue.
I think that class content will absolutely be themed to that expansion, which means the Titans, maybe Sargeras, and of course, lots of Azeroth as well. Now, there is another cool thing, and it's one you can do right now. Blizzard have actually made gearing up in World of Warcraft a hell of a lot faster. So
yeah, dude.
You can check that out in this news video.
I have so many alts, it's crazy, dude.
Right here. The implications are truly ginormous.
Ooh, I don't think they
don't
thought
play
this
Mythic
through.
Plus.
Guys, let me know in the chat if you're watching live, what are your thoughts on some of these classes? Which one do you guys want the best? If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Check out the other videos I've got on my channel as well. I actually think this could be a great direction for World of Warcraft. I think we need a lot of new classes. I think we just need a lot right now to continue the momentum of World of Warcraft, to continue to bring a healthy population of the game. They're doing a lot right, but again, like, to really create momentum, you can't just do like a few cool things for a short period of time. You need to keep that up over a long period of time. It's like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? I do not envy Blizzard, because that is a hard thing to try and keep up. But I think this kind of excitement and adding new and fresh things I've never done, experimenting, taking an old game in a new direction, I think it's something they really need to do. Let me know your thoughts.